It's probably slightly different to what some of you in the room are doing. We're not actually trying to market anything really. We are just trying to have a conversation. We're trying to tell your stories. So it's probably a slightly different perspective, but I think there's quite a bit of crossover in terms of the way that we're connecting with the community and the way that we're interacting. Andrew?
Thanks, Ginger. Andrew Barr, my day job anyway, is Deputy Chief Minister of the ACT, sometimes extends into the night. I am in an evolving relationship with social media. I love it and I hate it. Possibly in the same way I'm in an evolving relationship with the traditional media that I have my love and hate moments with. It's, I think, part of the profession of politics that we both need the media and we love the media at times, but we're also very sensitive to how we're treated in the media. Social media I see as an opportunity to have a direct connection and a direct voice, in a way almost to bypass the media and have that direct conversation with my constituency and indeed with a broader group of like-minded individuals. But I'm finding my social media journey is, as I say, evolving, and I'm learning what to do, what not to do, what works and what doesn't. I don't profess to be an expert in this area, but I could perhaps offer some insights into maybe what not to do more than what to do. David.
Well, my name's David Shiraz from Win News, 7 o'clock weeknights. Thank you. I came here basically because I all knew you would be here and not watching Win, so I thought, well, this is a good way to boost the promotional of that. No, I have this relationship with social media where I don't quite understand how to use it, but for some reason I still use it, which means tweets get out there that shouldn't, photos of my cat get out there that shouldn't, and I just came here to learn, I guess, a bit more about what you all use social media for and how I can, I don't know, give you any advice on how I use it if you want to use it the way I do. If you like cats or... There you go, James, take that off me.
You can keep it. Question one that I've prepared, which may or may not interest any of you. I hope it interests you. So according to a news survey, readers don't seem to really care about what organisation they're getting their news from or what device format they're reading it on. What actually matters is the news itself. Having said that, what is your opinion on the future of social media in the news industry?
We love surveys at the ABC because basically you can always find a survey that supports your opinion or doesn't support your opinion. I dispute the survey. I actually read a study that came out of the States just a couple of days ago, and it said that what happens when there's a big event, like if you get an earthquake or something major happens, the Twitter kind of chatter, if you like, dies down, and then people go to what they call elite users. So they're essentially trusted sources. They might be high-profile politicians, they might be news journalists. They're people that the community trusts, which I think is quite interesting. So you will perhaps engage in chatter, but when you know there's something going on, you need to go to someone who will verify the information. And that's certainly what happens at the ABC. And, you know, we saw that during the 2003 bushfires, for example, not so much with social media, but definitely with our website. You know, we gained hundreds of thousands of hits on our website, and it's never gone down again. So I think that's the first thing. I think in terms of the future of social media in the news industry, that's a lot more complicated. And I guess that goes to what you think a journalist is and what you think the role of a citizen journalist is, which I also have views on, but I think other people will have too.
Yeah, don't mind if I... So I guess 3 quick points. The first one is that I think that there's a couple of different types of reporting that are sort of really starting to emerge and have very different sort of approaches. There's always been analysis reporting. There is always a need for independent professional analysis. And I think that in a lot of ways started to get confused with the other sort of reporting, which is equally important but a very different skill set, which is events reporting. Citizens, in the past, events reporting has been very much mainstream news. Nowadays, events reporting can be very much, I think, citizens, because, you know, the person that's on the ground that sees the thing happening is reporting on the event, but you still need the analysis and you still need trusted sources, in some cases, to report the event so that you can know it's a true event, you know, rather than the latest celebrity death that's not really true. So the second thing is more citizen journalism, I think, is inevitable and happening, and that's a good thing, because more people being able to share experience and expertise who are not necessarily journalists in the first instance is useful, and more data journalism. So I think we're going to see the news get more visual, more interactive, more easy for people to engage with. But my third point, and this is my slight, this is the anti-authoritarian in me, is the massive distribution of power. What the internet has done, what social media has done for the mainstream, has massively distributed traditionally centralised powers. The power to publish, the power of communication and collaboration, the power of monitoring, the power of enforcement, which gets a bit scary, and the power of property, particularly with 3D printing starting to really come along. So this massive distribution of power to the general citizens is certainly changing the game significantly, and I think it's a very exciting time for everybody.
Andrew?
I think people's news habits reflect a lot of their existing biases. So people tend to self-select across which news outlet they'll get their source from, that reinforces their own views. And that trend started in America, and it's certainly growing even stronger in Australia. More and more people on the conservative side of the political debate will get their news from Rupert Murdoch-aligned organisations and listen to commercial talkback radio that reinforces their views. More left-leaning people tend to get their news in Australia from Fairfax-aligned organisations and perhaps listen to the ABC. Not universal, but as a general statement, I think that's true. What this means is that getting a message out, ensuring that you have the capacity to communicate with a broader group of people can often mean entirely different messages through entirely different channels. And that, in the modern age, though, catches politicians out. And so you get a lot of the gotcha moments that someone said something to Alan Jones that's entirely different to what they say to Tony Jones on Q&A. Social media plays a very significant role in amplifying that, ensuring that everything and anything a politician ever says is recorded. What that means now is that the political parties in particular are now developing their own news channels, and I came in at the tail end of the last session, and someone said that content is king, and that is certainly the case. But now politicians, political parties, organisations are generating their own content and are bypassing traditional media sources. I think it's still got a way to go, though, before people will look beyond, with the greatest of respect, to the ABC or to Win News or to any of the more traditional media sources, that they will be prepared to go straight to source. But I think that moment is coming, and it's going to fundamentally change the way that citizens engage, particularly with their elected governments.
I don't know, I always think it's a bit self-indulgent to talk about the media as a media person, but I think that what you're saying in terms of people going for straight to the content, while that's a good idea, you need someone, a journalist's job is to hold someone accountable, and you need someone who can verify that information. And that's kind of the role of a journalist. I don't know if you remember when Richard Wilkins reported that Jeff Goldblum had died. Goldblum, or whatever. All right.
Someone died somewhere.
And Richard Wilkins was left pretty red-faced because he went on live television and reported that. And I feel like he was obviously following one source that proved to be incorrect. So the journalism as a whole has to just verify sources. So, and in terms of where social media is going, I think the news has to work with it. I read somewhere that the managing director of The Guardian said 10% of their readership comes from Twitter links. So if you work with social media as opposed to try and fight it like Rupert Murdoch, he's not here, is he? No.
I didn't have his phone number.
He's a hard guy to get a hold of. Then you'll be okay. So I don't know, I kind of rambled a little bit, but hopefully that makes sense.
I just wanted to pick up on a couple of points both Pia and Andrew have made. One of the things I think it's great to do if you're on social media is not follow everybody that you agree with. follow people from the left and right, follow smart people that are doing lots of different things, because what happens is you become really informed about a whole universe outside your door, not just reinforcing your own views in the way that Andrew is talking about. I don't follow people who troll me, vile people, but I do follow people who have vastly different views from mine, and it's interesting. You know, it's interesting to inform your worldview, and it makes you come up with ideas that you wouldn't come up with before. On the subject of kind of citizen journalism, which I think is really interesting, some of my colleagues at the ABC are very, very threatened by this idea that other people are reporting, and they say, I've been doing this for 30 years, you know, how do they know how to report? I actually think it's very, very exciting. What it means is you've got this whole wealth of information and people coming to you with information, and you can tap into it at any time. I more see our role into the future as curators. So yes, we say, wow, you know, that's a great idea. I'm going to go somewhere with that idea. I'm going to contact that person and ask them to speak on the radio, or I'm going to follow it up. And it's more about curating other people's ideas. And it's not so much about saying, I, Ginger Gorman, am telling you what you should be listening to on the radio today. It's about saying, hey, I'm thinking of doing a show about this. What do you reckon? And then people coming back to you with their ideas, and you creating programming, creating stories with your audience.
No.
Andrew? I think the left-right thing is interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just been my perception of, you know, when you see who comments on particular programs, who follows who. Yes, I think you're right. There are some people who do want to follow a broad range of opinion, and not necessarily just in a binary party political, Labor Liberal sort of sense, but, you know, across the spectrum of political opinion. But I mean, to get back to the question, the news industry is obviously significantly upping their social media presence, and to a certain extent, you know, people will, because they're comfortable with consuming media in that form, will want to continue to use those sites. But I guess I pose the question: if you want to hear about what, well, not just me, but what a politician is doing and the announcements the politician's making or the government is making, you're going to choose to follow them directly and have your chance to ask the questions to them directly, or are you going to rely on someone else to do that analysis for you? And some people will rely on others to do that analysis, but what I'd say I'm finding increasingly is, you know, if I make a statement in social media, I will immediately get, so what's your source? Where's the, you know, what backs up that statement? Where are the facts that you know, that underpin either the announcement or the statement that you've just made? And if I'm not able to pretty immediately identify those, go to the statistical base or whatever, people will then question my credibility. So I think, you know, this is no disrespect again to the journalists. They're under-resourced. There's not as many journalists as there used to be. The business model for journalism is breaking down, but citizens are increasingly taking on that role, and it can be confronting for politicians, let me tell you. And people think you work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and expect you to respond to their detailed list of questions immediately, and that's not always easy to do. That's a danger in this process. But overall, I think it's enhancing democracy. People are asking the questions they want to ask, and most of the time getting the answers they need.
Just add to that, I mean, it's enhancing storytelling as well. We get a minute and a half to put a story to air. Sometimes you're lucky and your news director lets you stretch it to 2, and yay. But the good news is that you can tweet out things that perhaps won't make it into the story that other people can see. So if someone, and for the same thing, if someone wants to call you on a fact that you've put to air, they can contact you straight away. I had someone tweet me about the jeans I was wearing. I don't know why that was necessary.
Or your nose,
yeah. Or my face, or too much foundation, or... Anyway, that's just my opinion.
Peter, you had something to weigh in?
Yeah, no, I will throw something at the end now. Sorry. I will throw just something quick in. I think, just to build on that, it's a way to clarify truth quickly. I don't know if anyone's heard the a lie runs around the world before the truth has got its shoes on. It's useful to nip things in the bud before they get bad, and so you can identify, and by being present, people can ask you questions to be able to get clarification. Unfortunately, a lot of people that work in government find that if people outside of government assume nefariousness, where often it's just, either the process or someone made a mistake, or there's all kinds of other reasons, but people just assume it's something bad. So being able to say, well, just ask me in the first instance is great. But the other thing is that I think this is where, and I know we get to data in a second, but providing source material is very important, and having trusted source material. So if you can actually have the data that backs up the report or the media release or whatever, then people can check it, and if they come up with different analysis, that's great, because that helps make better policy decisions, better services, all that kind of stuff. And it also means that when they check it, and if your results and your hypothesis is correct, it improves trust, and it improves people's interest in what you're doing. So a big part of this revolution is about making sure that people have the means to actually have a more informed discussion. So it isn't just a 140 character policy debate, but it is using all of the tools, and wherever everyone is, and wherever they're already engaging, going to the conversations rather than building a mountain expecting everyone to come to you, and then providing the source material that people can engage with.
I'll open up to the floor. If anyone's got any questions to the panel, go ahead.
Now, as you said, organisations are kind of breaking the news themselves. Do you now allocate more resources to kind of watching that and tracking that, or has it affected your actual newsroom itself?
I'll give it to David in a second. The ABC runs on a rubber band, and basically what's happened is the rubber band's got tighter. So, I started the ABC 12 years ago. Yeah, it's just all been piled on top. Look, people are at different stages with social media. I'm obsessed with it, so I probably behave in a slightly different way. And I will often just throw the question out there. Like, tomorrow we're going to talk about this. What do you reckon? Who knows about this? Like the other day, Lake Burley Griffin turned 40, 50, was it? And I said, hey, does anyone know anyone who was there when Lake Burley Griffin was being filmed? And somebody said, yep, my dad or whatever, and I gave them a call. So yes, in that sense, yes. I don't know if that answers your question. I'll pass it to David.
You're from ACT Policing, aren't you? No, we do... Troy? We do wait for media releases, but often... I remember there was a couple of months ago, the baby got kidnapped from the car, and that hit Twitter first before the police knew about it. So often you'll see a tweet, and you don't usually act on it unless you see a couple of them, and then you start to realise, hold on, maybe this is accurate, and you call the police to then verify. So you still have to verify what's happening is true. Similar thing happened with, I think there was a lockdown at a school, and that hit Twitter first too. So you have to work. You work on a rubber band. We work on your old rubber band. Like Win News is also under resourced, and I think that's just the news in general. So I think you have to just whatever time I have. Like if Andrew Barr's late at a press conference, not that you ever are, I will get on my phone and have a quick look at Twitter or something. Just use the time you have wisely, I guess. But that's just from a news sense of view. I don't know.
Other questions?
Well, I have a question, and I'm not sure if you might address this. Managing the negativity, and I think it's a big thing for women, it seems to be, because people hide behind the anonymity and feel free to say whatever. But you're in politics or you're in news, people feel free to say whatever. Managing that, but still being open, that to me seems really difficult, because you get this barrage of negativity that you wouldn't, in the old world, you wouldn't have known. How do you manage that, or how does that work for you?
Oh, good. I'm interested in what I think too. No, hopefully. So I've been online a long time. I'm in the IT sector a long time, and I've become a professional troll wrestler. And the funny thing is that part of the problem is you need to learn to stop worrying and love the bomb. You need to start realising that you can't manage the online conversation, you can't control it, you can't stop people being negative. What you can do is engage constructively. I have had many online conversations, particularly now that I started working in government, and also previous to this job I worked in, well, it doesn't matter. So I've worked in jobs where people are very, they assume the worst. And I have a conversation, and when people are negative, I always start from the premise, even with the worst trolls I've dealt with, and I've dealt with some very, very good ones, I start with the premise that maybe they have a point in the first instance, right? So let's start from, even if they're putting it, there's only two types of criticism in this world. There's something that has a point and something is valid, something is invalid, and that can be put forward in a positive or a negative way. So you have to start from the point of, is there something valid in this, right? Because often enough, the biggest trolls are highly frustrated individuals who actually have something useful to contribute. Certainly some don't, but a lot do. So I start from saying, okay, thank you for the contribution, thank you for your feedback, do you have anything constructive to give? Because, we're actually trying to do something good here. We're trying to make things better. So, you've obviously got passion in this, so what can you give us that'll actually help us do this? And usually people turn around and they just go, my goodness, you're listening. You responded to me. So the first thing is a lot of those people turn around and become your biggest allies and your biggest supporters. Not supporters necessarily, but they can give you useful feedback. So rather than trying to manage it or block them or just push them out, I have found that I have been able to engage constructively with almost every troll. And if you create and you do it all publicly, because if someone genuinely just wants to trash and burn and slash, and few do, and they're not trolls necessarily, they are, they're a whole different beast, then what you do is by creating that conversation publicly, by engaging with them publicly, by engaging constructively, you create a narrative where the community that you're engaged in starts to self-regulate. This is important. You create a narrative, and the people that are involved in your conversation want that narrative to go well. And then other people will start saying, basically back off, buddy. And I found that works really, really well. And it's not about trying to isolate an individual or anything. It's about trying to say, we're doing something really good and having the positivity outweigh the negativity. And very often, even in this room, it's very easy to be snarky online, but it's also really easy to transfer a lot of that snarky energy into really useful energy. That's just my experience, but I've done a lot of it, so on a lot of different fora.
I mean, at the ABC, and lots of women who are public figures, academics, they are getting threats that I don't really want to repeat. I'm currently writing about this, and it's revolting, and there's pictures of my family on Nazi hate websites, that kind of thing. It's nasty, and I don't think they're in the same league as the kind of people that Pia is talking about. And this is going to be a big issue into the future. There's research out of Canada earlier in the year, I think it came out in February, which shows that people who are trolling are, for the most part, quite sadistic, and they have psychopathic tendencies. So they are not normal people. And unfortunately, the online environment has created a petri dish for those people. And a few years ago, none of us had heard of trolling. Now it's very alive. It is very misogynistic, and we're starting to deal with this at the ABC at the moment. It's in its very early stages, but this will be something that most institutions in Australia will have to deal with. Lots of female academics are getting this kind of trolling. Lots of female sports women, comedians. I don't know if you've read the story about Sarah Millican, the British comedian. This is unfortunately going to be an issue for us into the future. I don't have any easy answers, except to say that if you are going into that space, know that it's there and expect it, because that will be partially a psychological armour for you.
Life's too short. That's basically where I got to with it. My response to some of that abuse early on was just to try and respond with humour. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But when someone is insisting you're going to get AIDS and die because you're a dirty homo, then it's probably not too far you can go with that. So I as in part of my evolving relationship with the different media, the different social media channels, do utilise from time to time. I will block people if they are consistently being abusive on a personal level, and who I allow to become a friend within my Facebook community, I guess, as opposed to because I've those old-fashioned people who still has a profile and a page, and I need to work out how to merge the two apparently, but I haven't got time for that at the moment. So there's people who can follow you who might post, and there's people, I guess, who are in that community that you've established. And I guess I've adopted a different set of rules depending on the social media outlet. But ultimately, it comes down to life is too short to argue with people who, are going to go a personal attribute or something like that. It's just not worth it.
I don't face a lot of criticism apart from my bosses, but when I used to become really obsessed with it. If someone tweeted me, I'd go through their profile and look through it, and then I'd start firing back, like, why don't you spend less time arguing with me and more time tweeting the block or something? And then I realised that makes me look petty and bad. Thank you. So I tried another tactic of getting my girlfriend Alex to attack them. That worked for a little while until people realised we were together, and then it just came back at me. So then I just tried to just realise, well, you know what, that's a problem with them, and that's not really your problem. If you engage with them and you give them, I guess, airtime, they're going to get more followers. So my thing is, don't let them get more followers. And my advice to all of you is, don't let them get more followers.
In your opinion, what does the future of social media look like?
Andrew? You're used to answering questions.
You're building the future for us.
Well, I know Katie announced this today. This is there you go, plug. Katie announced free Wi-Fi for Canberra, which obviously will get more people out and using social media and tweeting about their food. Which, I don't know, who tweets their food here? Yeah. Get out, all of you. No, I think social media, this is kind of it's an easy question and a hard question, because you can look at it and go, well, I mean, from a media point of view, we used to be scared of social media and think, well, they're stealing our jobs. But it goes down to that thing again that I said of embracing it. And if you work with it and you use it as a source and you follow the right people and you work with it, then you'll be okay. From a political point of view, I think it works for you because you can engage with your constituents. And
You don't have to knock on the doors, go around and knock on the doors.
random fact, my first ever interview was with Andrew Barr, and I got it through Twitter when I was at university. So
Simone's comment, I think Simone's earlier comment goes to this, that, it's the start of a conversation, it's not the finish of the conversation. I think so. You still need the personal relationship. Sometimes I worry. Did anyone see that photo that was being tweeted by Triple M? I'm just giving a plug to an alternative radio station. But anyway, there was everybody looking at their phones, and there was the one guy looking up and going, what is he looking at? And that worries me, that we're all going to be sitting there, looking at our phones and not talking to each other. But I don't really think that happens.
Right now.
But so I've been involved with the Canberra Tweet Up, and a lot of the people I know here today, I have gone and had coffee with them because I met them on Twitter. So I think your personal relationships are still really important. But in terms of how we make radio, how we make news stories, how we engage as politicians, I think social media's future has to do with collaboration. And I reckon that can only be a good thing. When you're bringing people together, they're getting involved in conversations together, they're arguing, they're disputing points, they're correcting us. That's a good thing. That's what Pia was talking about. That's the democratisation of opinion, of media, of government. I think that's awesome. Excuse me for using that foul word. No, it's awesome. Andrew.
I agree with everything that's been said. The other thing that is clear is that the pace of change will continue to accelerate. And so, it's funny to think that institutions like Facebook and Twitter that seem absolutely essential now may well not be the essential channels in a not too distant future. So rapid evolution, much greater levels of connectivity here and elsewhere, particularly here, David, thank you. Thanks to our Australian leading Wi-Fi rollout. So you can all tweet about your food, and this is a serious point though. A brilliant opportunity for a segue. Yesterday we launched the Canberra part of Restaurant Australia, our major tourism campaign, and food and wine is a massive thing for this region and a big thing for tourism in Australia. And so people might smirk, but half the room does share those experiences, and that's something that will generate business and opportunity for lots of people in this city, and tourism will be a big driver of our economy. So let's not be too shy about sharing our great experiences at all the fantastic venues that we have in Canberra.
There you go.
All right. So, I once wrote a blog post called "The Internet. It's Not All Unicorns and Doom." So I think there's positives and negatives to come, and you can sort of get lost in whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or all the rest of it. But fundamentally, I guess a couple of points. Personal versus professional, that's come up in the Twitter questions a couple of times now. So I think that differentiation between people talk about your professional narrative online, and I think that people need to think a little bit more about what they put online becomes their personal story. It is how people see you. And if people only see one tweet about you, and that tweet is something from the toilet saying, wow, that was a big one, that's not cool. I'm sure tweet people, and that, of course, now it's going to become my friggin' narrative anyway. The point is that everything you put online makes up how people see you. Everything. So people talk about personal versus, or private versus professional. What I put to you is everything you put online is part of one profile, and that is you. So I differentiate myself between personal and private. So I put some personal stuff up. I'll put up, here's a song I recorded the other day. Here's I'm going to Mongolia. Here's some cool shit about my life. Am I allowed to swear? Yep. But I don't put up private stuff, right? If you write it down, whether it's in an email or on social media, anyone can see it at any point, during the rest of your life. So differentiating between personal and private, I think, is an important thing that people are starting to learn. And people go on about how it's a terrible thing that the youth of today, they're going to be able to find photos of that drunken night in 20 years' time. This brings me to my second point. Who's heard of the panopticon? Now we're going to get nerdy. All right, so the panopticon is the concept of a particular type of jail that takes very few number of people to look after the prisoners, because from any point in the jail, as a prisoner, you don't know if you're being watched or not, right? So the idea is that if you don't know if you're being watched, then you will self-limit. Now, with CCTV, with the internet, with TV, there's a concept from a guy, Rousseau, that says that you self-limit. I think we're actually about to go through this fascinating tipping point over the next little while, and we haven't hit it yet, where people realise that there is no such thing as normal to strive towards, that we've all been pretending for many years, right? But rather that having all those embarrassing things, and they will be permanent record things for the rest of your life, actually demonstrates that life is far less normal, and this is a good thing. We're actually getting away from the need to pretend to be normal, because it's so obvious that there's no such thing as normal, and that's a good thing. So there's my second point. And my third one is that the social media future heads towards far greater accountability than ever before, because of that because of that pushing from power, from centralisation out to everyone, the massive distribution of power, but also creates fantastic opportunities for those that care about this kind of thing for abuses of privacy. So again, getting back to, for all kinds of reasons, and mostly because I'm a nerd, I have a very good intuitive understanding of what my digital footprint looks like. I know about IP tracking, I know about MAC addresses, I know about people's privacy, your privacy. How many people here consider themselves geeks? Not many. Not many. And the thing is, your personal privacy is only two things. There's only two things that contributes to it. First of all is your concept of privacy. So for me, my location is something I consider very private. I don't tend to say I'm going to be out of the house today because I understand what that means to a criminal. Although right now they know I'm out of the house. But the other part of it no one talks about is your technical literacy. If you don't understand tech, even just the basics about the tools that you're using, you are only as free as the technologies that you use, right? So greater tech literacy is vital for our society to be able to use this stuff in powerful ways and to not be limited and hampered by this stuff. So, so there's my 3 points.
Yeah, Tim.
This is for Andrew. The Chief Minister today posted a meme, Game of Thrones meme. What do you think about that?
Oh, I'm going looking for it now. Winter is coming, Tim. Yes.
Wi-Fi is coming.
So what is it?
Wi-Fi is coming.
Wi-Fi is coming. Very good. Look, that's the Chief Minister is an excellent user of social media.
So is that her first meme?
Could be. Will you
be doing the same?
You should send her a tweet.
Well, she's dare I say it, raised the bar.
There you go. And with that note, please thank our panel.